emcee for today's luncheon, Irika Sargent.
Well, welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. From the energy, the volume in the room, I'm betting there were some very engaging conversations going on. I love seeing the fellowship here. And I wanted to take a moment to tell you why I'm especially excited about being with you today for the Chicago Network's Women in the Forefront Luncheon. So, a lot has changed at CBS in the last year, from the top down. Our co-president is a woman, Wendy McMahon. Our regional Midwest head is a woman, President Jennifer Mitchell. And there's a name that many of you probably are familiar with because she has been in Chicago and media for such a long time, and she decided it was a great opportunity to join us at CBS 2. We're talking about Jen Lyons, our new president. Our moderator for the event is the executive producer at the network CBS Mornings show. And our local executive producer for our marquee 10 p.m. news is a woman as well. And I say this because being able to be with them, to work with them, to collaborate with them, to be inspired by them is such an amazing opportunity for me. And it's one of the reasons why I'm here today. Because prior, I'd say 2 leaders ago, Marty Wilkie was the first one to give me a chance here in Chicago at CBS 2. So now I'm thrilled to introduce 2 of your own, 2 wonderful women leaders from the Chicago Network. It's my pleasure to welcome to the stage Denise Singleton, the Chicago Network's board chair, and the Chicago Network president and CEO, Maria Downey.
Wow, this is incredible. The energy, wow. Welcome to the 34th annual Women in the Forefront Luncheon and Juneteenth celebration. As Irika said, I am chair of the board of the Chicago Network, actually outgoing chair. This is one of my last official duties, and I am so glad to be here doing this. First, let me thank Irika, who keeps coming back. Love you, Irika. It's always a pleasure to see her in person. We also want to recognize and thank Mayor Lori Lightfoot for joining us this afternoon, taking time out of her busy schedule. That's great. We're thrilled that you're here with us, and we recognize and celebrate Juneteenth and the Chicago Network's achievements in empowering women to lead. What a year we've had. It's been wonderful, and we are so thrilled to be getting back together today, back in the familiar and iconic Chicago venue where we have held so many Women in the Forefront lunches. Thank you for joining us. It's our sponsors that make today's event possible, and we are grateful for the commitment that they have to equity and the network well beyond today's event. First, let's thank our premier sponsor, Discover Financial Services, and its representation in our organization, Diane Offerines and Wanji Walcott. And I'm going to go off script a minute because I can. Let me tell you who sponsored me at the Chicago Network. And without her, I would not be standing here. I would not be chair of the board of the Chicago Network. And that is none other than Diane Offerines. Diane, I'm giving it up. Diane told me, she said, Denise, you're going to be chair of the board of the Chicago Network. And I said, really, Diane? And she said, yes. So thank you to her. She's been a great sponsor, a great friend. I would not be here without her, and I could not get up on this stage without recognizing her today. So then let's talk about our 10 platinum sponsors. I'll ask you to hold your applause to the end. Anthem, Aon, Bright Star Care, CDW, Financial Investments Corporation, Grainger, Kirkland & Ellis, McDonald's, the Northridge Group, and West Monroe. And we have a number of other gold, silver, and copper sponsors. So I'm going to turn the mic over to the CEO of the Chicago Network. But those of you who know me know I recently got married, and I recently took a job in Atlanta. And so this is a farewell of sorts, because I probably won't see as many of you in this room again, but I will stay connected with the Chicago Network. I will remain on the board. It's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. I've met so many inspiring women, and we will continue our work at the Chicago Network of empowering women to lead. Let me turn over the mic to our President and CEO, Maria Dowdy.
Okay, I'll add my own wow. Thank you, Denise, so much. It's now my privilege to acknowledge the women in the forefront co-chairs, Beth Kirk-Malecki, Diane Offrines, and Julie Scott, as well. Hold on. I also want to thank our small but very, very mighty Women in the Forefront Luncheon Committee. Would you all please stand so we can recognize you? Thank you. Thank you all for your incredible hard work at filling this incredible ballroom. I really wish I could flip this scene so you could see what I can see. It's just truly magnificent. And now I want to also thank and recognize the Chicago Network's Board of Directors. Would you please stand and be recognized? Their names are in your program. Thank you for your leadership and support. You make my job so easy. I also now want to give a very special thanks to the TCN team, Laura Jaffe, Ellen Feinberg, Nathan Upchurch, and Kathy Brownlee, who worked tirelessly to make everything perfect today. And thanks also to our event volunteers, as well as Univision and CBS for their AV and media support. Finally, a very big thanks to the entire Hilton staff and crew for their gracious hospitality and service. We are so happy to be back. One final thing, I'd just like to remind everyone to make sure you hashtag Wiffle 2020. And with that, I thank you and just enjoy the program.
All right, are you ready for our main event? Are you ready for our main event? Well, it is my privilege to introduce them to you first. Sheila Johnson is an influential business leader, entrepreneur, concert violinist, educator, and philanthropist. Ms. Johnson is a bold and powerful visionary who doesn't allow limits to be placed on what or where she can make a difference. She is the founder and CEO of Salamander Hotel and Resorts. As vice chairman of Monumental Sports and Entertainment, Ms. Johnson is the only African-American woman to have ownership in 3 professional sports teams. In 2016, she led the formation of WE Capital, a venture capital consortium, to support and invest in female-led enterprises. Ms. Johnson started her work in the entertainment industry as co-founder of Black Entertainment Television, and this year she is celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the Middleburg Film Festival. She founded that and serves as chair. It is known as one of the key festivals to attend leading. Now to Michele C. Meyer-Shipp. She is the president and CEO of Dress for Success Worldwide. She leads the organization's 145 affiliates in 23 countries. She is an attorney and has served as a strategic advisor on people and culture-related matters across multiple industries for decades. Before joining Dress for Success, she was the Chief People and Culture Officer at Major League Baseball and served as a senior advisor to the commissioner, as well as leaders across 30 Major League Baseball teams and multiple minor league teams as well. Ms. Meyer-Shipp has roots in Chicago because she served as KPMG's Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, leading initiatives across 85+ national offices. She is a media contributor and respected thought leader. As such, has been featured in many top media outlets, including Yahoo Finance News, The New York Times, USA Today, and The Economist, to name a few. Ms. Meyer-Shipp is deeply committed to civic leadership and empowering women to succeed. And finally, our esteemed moderator, Shawna Thomas, executive producer of CBS Mornings. Ms. Thomas has had an extraordinary career in media. She is an award-winning journalist, correspondent, contributor, digital editor, and producer. Ms. Thomas' work has taken her across the globe from Charlottesville to Guantanamo Bay. Prior to joining CBS, she was an executive for Quibi, primarily developing short-form news programming for CBS News, NBC News, and BBC News. You may see her on the air as well at MSNBC and NBC News, as she is a political contributor for both. Previously, she was in the Washington, D.C. Bureau for the chief there for Vice News and oversaw politics and D.C.-based policy coverage for Vice News Tonight on HBO. Ms. Thomas has covered some of the most important events in recent history, including President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's summit in Singapore and the infamous Trump-Putin meeting in Helsinki. She has been widely celebrated with 4 Emmys, a Peabody, a Gracie, and 2 Scripps Awards. So please join me now in welcoming these exceptional women to the stage.
Is my mic working? Okay, great. Hi, I'm Shawna Thomas. I want to say thank you to Irika. Also, shout out to CBS 2, table 80 in the back, yeah. As well as thank you to everybody who is here, who's joining us, especially Sheila and Michele. I am sitting next to Sheila Johnson, guys. She's amazing. So while we were talking a little bit earlier, this is not a question that's actually on this packet of notes that I have for myself. I asked her, why does she own stakes in 3 professional sports teams? Can you tell them what you were telling Mayor Lightfoot and I about that?
Yes. Well, first of all, women are not even given the chance to own a team. And when it was brought to my attention and they asked me if I would like to be the face of the WNBA's Washington Mystics, and I said, why? And they said, why not you? So I went and visited them. I looked at the financials, and I'm like, uh-oh.
I want to support, but...
but I knew I had the opportunity of a lifetime, and then it dawned on me that I had the financial wherewithal to not only buy the WNBA's team, but I bought into the Wizards and the Capitals. So that way, I then became vice chairman under Ted Leonsis of Monumental Sports. So what happens, if there are any losses in any of the teams, they kind of flow through each one. So we're able to still, bottom line, it's a business. And we're able to then make it solvable.
So I love that because it was just an idle question from me, like, you know, trying to get in on the conversation with Mayor Lightfoot, and she's just dropping knowledge right there. Just, you know, balance the sheet, figure out what you're going to do. I appreciate that.
Hey, if you got to write that check every year, you don't think about that.
Also something I need to learn. But I do want to jump into this because as I had conversations with both of them before I came here to Chicago, just to sort of pre-interview them, get an idea of what they wanted to say. And both of you have something in common. And that's kind of deliberately making a change in the work that you decided to do. Once you had sold BET, you sat down, tried to figure out what you want to do. You're in the hospitality business right now, along with many other ventures. And then you, very recently, left MLB to run Dress for Success, this amazing organization. And Sheila, I'm going to start with you. What made you make that change? How'd you figure that out?
Well, first of all, I'm in my third active life. And after we sold BET, I was going through a really personal transition in my life. And I remember my mother saying to me, girl, you need to get your power back. Because so often, so many of us women live in the shadow of the significant other. And it was not pleasant, but it was something that I had to sit back and figure out what I was going to do next. I realized that once you close one door, another door will open, but you've got to release that for that to happen. And so a broker came to me and says, we have 340 acres that borders the town of Middleburg, Virginia. Would you be interested in looking at it? I said, well, why not? And I went up there and the light bulb went off. I said, you know, this town is in bankruptcy. And I think I can really change this town and really make it financially solvent. So I purchased the land and then I decided to build a resort from scratch up on that land. Now, I'm going to tell you, it was not easy because I ran into racial headwinds like you wouldn't believe. My life was threatened, my kids' lives were threatened. I forgot I was south of the Mason-Dixon line. And it was an ugly fight that took 10 years and I won by 1 vote in the end. So now we have Salamander Resort and Spa up there, and it is the one of, well, it just won it for the 4th year in a row. It's Forbes 5-star, but the spa also won a Forbes 5-star. So my resort, so my resort is one of 30 in the entire country that has the double 5-star and one of 63 in the world. And so now, I call it Middleburg's living room because they're up there all the time at the bar, you know. Everyone that was fighting me, they love the place.
That's how it works sometimes, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
So, Michele, you recently left Major League Baseball, and we talked a little bit about what made you make that decision. And I have to admit, when I read your bio, when I read about you, when we finally talked, I kept thinking, how do you leave a professional sports league? Everyone wants to work for MLB, NFL. My mic is peaking. I will take it down a notch. And you did it, and I think there's similarities between these two stories.
Absolutely.
So could you tell us a little about that?
As I was listening to Sheila, I'm like, that resonates with me, that resonates with me. Well, first let me say this. My 3 sons said the same thing to me. They're like, you're gonna do what? You're gonna quit that job? But yeah, I did. I think going back to what Sheila said, I got to a point in my career where I felt stuck and I felt like I wasn't utilizing my full potential. And I actually felt that I wanted to do something to have a more direct, immediate impact on the lives of those who are marginalized. And to be really candid, in this small living room of friends,
all 1,500
you know,
of them?
I had worked in corporate America for over 20 years. You know, baseball was the last big corporation I worked in. And I had a great career. I mean, I worked in amazing organizations. I learned a lot. And it was always, I found myself navigating the politics of it all, navigating the bureaucracy and the red tape of it all, and knowing what the right thing was to do, but having multiple roadblocks in the way and not being able to execute and actually have the impact.
Can you give us an example of that without getting anyone into too much trouble?
I think anyone who in this room does the work of talent, and in particular diversity, equity, and inclusion, we all know organizations will always say the right thing. Yes, we support DEI. Yes, we want to advance equity and inclusion for all. Yes, we want to be an inclusive workplace, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when you hire an expert like me to come in and unpack that and help the organization realize the things it needs to do to get there, I think any CDO would tell you that organizations are like, well, wait, actually, we're not quite ready to do that yet. Or, well, no, maybe not this year. Or, well, we don't have the budget dollars. And it's the whole cycle of it. After 12 years of navigating that frustration, I was done. I was absolutely fed up and really tired of being told no. And I remember when I decided to make the transition from baseball, I actually didn't have a job. I think you could call me one of the pandemic, what do you call it? The great resignation people. I was like, you know what? I think I want to join that group. I want to join that group. My last son went off to college, and my husband's like, you're going to do what? Are you crazy? And to Sheila's point, I'm a faithful person, and I had really been praying on this, and it was really heavy on me. And one day I woke up, and I said to myself, you know, you always tell people to unblock their blessings. Well, as long as you're sitting here in this amazing role with this amazing organization that everybody thinks is so great, no one's ever going to approach you about another amazing opportunity. So just take a minute, hit pause. So I stepped away with the mindset of literally a one-year sabbatical. And I did some self-reflection. I actually, if you've never done it, a career coach is an amazing thing to really help you think through your skills, talents, capabilities, and to have you take a look at the whole scope of your career to figure out not only what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and what really matters to you. And at the end of the day, for me, it came down to having an immediate impact on helping people who were really in need. And if you just Google and read about the stats of what's happened to women coming through this pandemic, you will see we've been set back over a decade in the workplace. We're all fortunate because we work for amazing organizations and we're pretty steady and stable, but there are a whole lot of women out there that are literally living check to check if they have a check. And some of the women we've seen are living in their cars. Okay, so when Dress for Success approached me about this opportunity, I had just finished the work with the career coach. I had just finished that self-reflection. And when I read the job spec, it was actually funny. My husband and my 3 sons, who are my advisors, they're like, let's take a look. And they read it. They're like, this is it. And I said to the recruiter, I said, that's my job. And she says, well, you know, there is a process. I said, yeah, I know, but I'm getting that job. And here we are.
Great.
Now, this is a leadership luncheon, so I want to start with a simple question. How would each of you define leadership? Sheila?
First of all, and I think about this a lot because I have to teach a leadership class down in Columbia, South Carolina at USC. And I've been reading a lot on what it takes to be a good leader. First of all, you know, as CEO of my company, I've got a lot of men and women that work for me, but especially men on the executive level. I have learned to be vulnerable. There's nothing wrong with being vulnerable, but having the courage to listen, to watch, and really evaluate what they're saying, and then you make the decision. You want to have respect for the people that work for you, no matter what you're thinking about them, and you know. But it really is about humility and vulnerability.
How would you answer that?
I totally agree. I mean, I think listening is critical, and I've actually learned this watching other great leaders. Listening and engaging the people on your team. I mean, I don't even talk about, you know, my staff, my people, it's our team.
Exactly.
It's being engaging, it's asking questions. Vulnerability is critical. Being genuine and authentic, and also admitting that you don't have all the answers. I mean, it's impossible to have all the answers. So just own it and acknowledge that, right? Being collaborative, being a connector, and being empathetic, especially now in the days and times we're living in, being really empathetic of your people. I find that as a leader, I get the most gains when I engage my folks.
Right.
So I'm the employee survey queen, the employee focus group queen. I want to know what everybody's thinking. I want to know what everyone's ideas are. And what's so fascinating about that, when you take the time to ask, you will literally find out there are so many common themes permeating throughout your organization that your people give you the answers. Your people tell you what the path is, and everyone had a stake in it, so everyone is engaged. It's powerful.
And I was just going to add one other thing. When I went into the hotel business, I mean, I learned a lot in the first 2 acts of my life, you know, from Foundation of the Arts and then BET. But what I've also learned going in the hotel business, and they said, why? You've never done this before. I knew that I would have a passion for it. I enjoy staying in great hotels, but what I had to do is I had to really find the best people out there. And I let them know, and I let them know all the time, I know nothing about the business, but I'm hiring you to teach me. And you have to recognize your weaknesses and your strengths. I knew I had good leadership skills, but I knew if I brought the best people in, I was going to learn from them. And, you know, going into 10 years now of my company, and I will tell you, we got over 3,000 employees, and I learn from them every day, all of them. And that's what is so important.
I mean, both of y'all mentioned listening. Like I said, in each of my individual conversations with you, there were so many parallels because both of you take the time to really listen to your staff. And what did you tell me about coming into Dress for Success and what your plan was with respect to the staff?
It was actually fascinating. And Wendy Wilkins is here, who runs our Chicago office, and she can vouch for me on this. But I told everybody clearly coming in the door, my board of directors, everyone, I said, do not ask me to make any major decisions within the first 90 days. Because for the first 90 days, I am going on a listening tour. And at home, I had this big white poster board, and I had literally mapped out all of my key stakeholder groups. You know, we have clients, volunteers, corporate partners, you know, employees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I identified a core set of questions that I wanted to ask each of them about the organization. And then for each group, I had slightly nuanced questions. And I literally went into this saying, I don't know what I don't know about the organization. I'm brand new to nonprofit. Help me understand your experience with these questions. And as I alluded to in my last answer, what was incredibly fascinating about this, the themes that came out across were so consistent. This stakeholder process literally built my strategic plan for the next 3 years. Talking to our 140 plus affiliates around the world in 23 countries, all of them would say to me, well, Michele, you know, our issues here in Africa are unique. Our issues here in London are totally different, et cetera, et cetera. But what they all did not realize is they were all telling me the same thing. They were all having the same exact challenges, some nuances, but it made it so easy to now frame out the steps forward such that when I go back to them, in fact, next week we have an affiliate conference, and say to them, all right, I've asked you, you've told me, and based on what you've told me, here's the plan moving forward. It's powerful, absolutely powerful.
And then how do you continue to interact with your staff?
Every day. I have an entire executive team that we are literally talking every day. We've got another big deal that's going to go down, I hope, today or this week.
You want to break some news
no,
here?
I can't break it, no.
Sure?
I'm positive. But
I'll ask
right
again
now, we own 2 hotels. We have a total of 4 others that we've managed, and I decided to form a management company because I didn't want to own any more hotels. But one of the latest acquisitions is the Aspen Meadows Aspen Institute, which my team really didn't want to do. And what I had to do was sell them on the vision. I said, you don't understand that African Americans are totally shut out of that space. And this is the Davos of the United States. This is where decisions are made, and there's politicians that come around, and they all are there together. Very few women, white men, if there's one or two black men that come up there, I don't know. And I was competing against 15 other companies, and I beat them out because I was able to teach them. I had been studying the Institute a long time, and I knew their value system, and I know my value system, and they aligned. And that's what I sold them on. But I deal with my top executives. We're probably on the phone, not even Zoom calls, but we get together, we travel together. I know them, we have meetings. We are constantly listening to one another and making collaborative decisions, but they know that the final decision does fall on me and how we're going to move forward. The hotel industry is a tough industry. I just was put on the American Hotel Lodging Association board. There were no women. There were no women. So I finally, and nobody of color. I shouldn't say that. There's a large contingent of Indian ownership that's coming in there. But it was something that I had to really get involved in to make sure that I had power and they could hear my voice within the industry.
So, and I think about this a lot, and I'm sure there's a lot of women in here who manage a team. When a staff member doesn't work, when you see it and you're like, how do I do this? How do you approach that?
Well,
what's your advice for them, me?
I have a philosophy that I hire slow, but I fire fast. I mean, why waste my time, and you can go to headhunting firms, you can do all sorts of things, but sometimes they just don't fit the family, the team members. Yeah. And you can recognize that right away. And you shouldn't drag your feet when you see all those red flags going up. And when I see something like that, I then go to the president of my company and so the other stakeholders in my team, and we discuss it, and then we decide what we're going to do.
Yeah, and it's similar. I would say, for me, it is similar. I've done that over the years, definitely. But I give somebody, if I notice an issue, I will give someone the feedback and give them a small window of an opportunity to improve. Depending on, the stakes that are on the table. But I will tell you that in a couple of different roles that I've had, and in the current role that I have, I am driving change. I am driving forward movement, and there have been, or there may be people who are not on the bus. And I will say, look, this is the direction that we're going in. If you're not with it, then let's work out an amicable way to part ways. I don't want any hard feelings. This is not personal. This is a business decision, but it's clear to me, and I've actually had this conversation many times over the years, it's clear to me that your agenda is not aligned with the agenda of the team and the organization, so let's find a way to part ways. And when you do that, there's something powerful there. It goes back to what Sheila and I talked about around leadership. You're being authentic, you're being genuine, you're shooting people straight, and when you have that conversation, you also open up a door to future opportunities for that person to set them up for success. I mean, who knows? There may be another job in the organization. Who knows? They may have an opportunity wherein you can kind of say, hey, your strengths are this or that. Let me help you navigate there. And guess what? Fast forward, you never know when that person might come back around and be a business partner or work with you in some way. So don't burn bridges. If you shoot people straight from the beginning, I think it really is the best way to tackle it.
So both of you y'all are bosses now. Y'all are straight up bosses. You weren't always straight up bosses. Do each of you have an example of a mistake you made earlier in your career that let you be the person that you are now, that let you learn? I wish I had written down what you said I should say to the person to help them move on to the next company. But do you each have an example of that? I'll let y'all think for a second. Oh, no, you have one.
We made a mistake.
Yeah. We don't have to talk about your marriage.
No?
You're always trying to start some trouble. I tell you.
I don't know what that face, I don't know you well enough to know what that face means. I don't want to get sued.
You're not gonna get sued.
A constant fear of mine as executive producer of CBS Mornings is getting
You
sued.
go.
Okay, I'll go.
Yeah,
I'll let
Michele.
I'll let you ponder on that. You ponder on that, Sheila. But I'll say this: I actually made a mistake at some point in time in my career, and it wasn't in a particular job, but it was leaving one job too quickly because I was frustrated, and just finding another job. And we're not going to talk about which job it was because I don't want to make anybody mad at me. But I was in a job at an organization that I loved, and my boss retired. And my boss was my sponsor, she was my mentor, and she was, quite frankly, a badass. I mean, this woman was amazing, and I learned so much from her. And I'll be honest and tell you this, I didn't really like her. She was really tough. She was really like hard charging. But when I think about what she had to go through to get where she was, I was like, you know what? Go ahead and be a badass. Be mean if you want, because you had to shed blood to get to this level. So I just had the utmost respect for her. Well, she left. And when she left, she whispered in my ear, and she said, so here's the deal. The next person that's coming in, heads up, Michele, he's going to have a new agenda. He's going to want to go in a different direction. He's going to ask you to do some things that I just want to give you a heads up because you're probably not going to want to do them. Well, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely not doing that. The guy showed up, we had a meeting, he told me about the new agenda. I was not in favor of his new agenda, and I very quickly, as an employment attorney, I'd practiced for 10 years, I went and negotiated myself an exit. But because I was so afraid of not having a job, I rushed and took another job. And my husband, I wish, you guys just please remind him I said this and admitted
Do we
this
wanna
on the
FaceTime
stage.
him right now?
We might. I'm going to actually admit this in front of 1,400 of my best friends. He said to me, do not take that job. He said, you're rushing, you're not being thoughtful, you're just afraid. Michele, you don't have to, you could take a minute. But I took the job. I was in the job about 3 months, and I was like, yeah, no, this isn't going to work. And I surreptitiously left the job. So the lesson learned was don't move too quickly. I didn't take my own advice that I just gave you a minute ago about trying to navigate with that leader, the new leader, to see if there might be other opportunities for me in that organization. I look back and wonder to myself sometimes, God, had I stayed there, I wonder what else I might have been able to do, but I never took the moment to look. So, I mean, it all worked out. I think I am where I am supposed to be, and I'm very happy about that, but that's one thing. If I could go back and rewrite, I would do that differently.
So it's my turn.
It is.
Yes, it is. Come on, Sheila.
Anyway, I've made a lot of mistakes, but I don't regret any of them. So I'm going to take this a different way. And I've learned from those mistakes. One thing I've learned is don't have fear of failure, because failure is the only way you're going to be able to move forward. I've been very successful in the jobs that I've had because I've always been self-employed. Even as a music teacher, I started an orchestra, a symphony orchestra, and it was very successful. Then going into BET as co-founder of that was a tough job. Yeah. That was a tough job. I hung in there. I was able to do some very important programming on there with Teen Summit. Once we sold to Viacom, your company, Paramount.
Paramount Global, thank you very much.
And there's just sitting back and looking over my life and trying to reassess. I really had no regrets. I don't think I really made any mistakes along the way. Now, I made some strategic decisions on how I was going to move forward. I just, because I've been in so much control of my own life, and I've had to make my own decisions, I don't regret anything. And as I've moved forward, there have been lessons learned, and it's made me stronger in the long run.
Because it's Juneteenth and we are here celebrating that, I did want to talk a little bit about the racial reckoning that's gone on in this country, especially in 2020 after George Floyd's murder. And I'm wondering, do either of y'all have advice for these businesses, these businesswomen, about how they continue to have the conversation about inclusivity in their companies without it just feeling like something that's slapped on? I mean, even, Juneteenth is a national holiday and that's great, but there were all those stories about different companies trying to appropriate it with ice cream flavors and things like that, and people being like, that's not what this is about, y'all. This is not what it's about. How do you have the conversation? How do you give your staffs that level of inclusivity, but also, in some ways don't royal things as well?
Well, in my business, in the hotel business, it's very conservative. I am very open with my staff. I talk to them about it, and most of the times they'll bring it up to me. And we will sit in the room and we will talk about what went on with George Floyd and all the other incidents that are going on out there. I give them my opinions, they give me theirs. We openly talk about it. It's not something that we just throw under the table. And I think it's important that I keep that dialogue open. And they know that as a female Black-owned company, that they have to have respect for me. They share my vision. I have never had a problem within my company. I mean, when last year I decided to do what I called the family reunion. And I brought together 27 of the top Black chefs from all over the country, and Kwame Amawachi and myself. We put this food and wine event together. Dave Chappelle came in, didn't charge me, which I was thrilled about. It was a gift. Community, but also to my staff. And they watched as we talked about jerk chicken and how we had to, that the food that is brought into this country is on the backs of people, the whole African diaspora. I mean, it was an educational experience, and we talked about minority-owned businesses. We talked about racism out there in the workforce, in the hospitality industry, especially in restaurants, and women trying to get started. Carla Hall was there, Nina Compton, you name it. But that is the way I deal with the racial disparities that are going on across this country. I bring it into I'm not going to use the word entertainment, but I hold events that my staff is involved in and the community is involved in, because you have to understand, I live in a community, it's an equestrian community, it was siloed, pure white. I was like something they had never seen come through there. And it was just a way of, now they are much more educated. But even before then, I started the film festival, and I had done the movie The Butler with Lee Daniels. I showed this movie, and I will never forget, once it was over and we had a panel discussion afterwards to talk about this first African-American butler in the White House who served 8 presidents. There was a man on the front row just sobbing. And I said, what's wrong? He said, please forgive me. For the first time, I realized the purpose of that film festival was to open dialogue, communication. I needed to open their eyes. I think we have too many communities that are living in silos where they don't really understand other races. They're not engaged with them, except if there's some woman working in their homes, but it's just really sad. And so I try to use my arts background to educate without sitting there and just preaching to them, but I do it in a very creative way. And this is extraordinarily important. I brought the American Ballet Theater and made sure that I had young students from DC to come out there to watch ballet dancers on the lawn. Big stage was erected. But it's about building bridges more than anything. And it's not that I want to confront anybody about George Floyd. I mean, we talk about it, but doing it in a creative way where they come up through discussions over food, through film, through storytelling, And that's the way I find that they work best. And I sit on the board of the Williamsburg Foundation, and it's important that our reenactments, that we can then educate so many children that come through and families about what slavery was like. But this is the best way that I have found to communicate and get the word out there about compassion, empathy, and understanding of all cultures.
You know, it's funny, Sheila, as I'm listening to you as having a background leading diversity, you know, for major corporations, I'm like, okay, she's got it. Like that's what's up right there. So it's about creating that environment that Sheila just described. Your organizations have to create that environment that welcomes and opens up the dialogue for the conversation. And I love, Sheila, the way you talked about finding creative ways in which to do that. It's not just bringing everybody in a room and saying, okay, we're going to talk about this. Like, that's very unnerving and unsettling. Find a way to create the space to have the conversation. And I think it's really important up front to acknowledge it's okay to be uncomfortable with this conversation. Let's just all acknowledge that we need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. We'll say that again. We need to get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Having conversations that we haven't had with each other before, right? So I can only imagine, my hair is standing up on my arms as I think about the conversations I can only imagine the guests at your event and the things that the movie and the dialogue brought up for them that they never had before. Yeah. So you have to create the safe space. You have to be vulnerable, going back to what we talked about before. And I would encourage you to do some of your own homework beforehand. So you're a little self-informed and you're not relying on someone else to teach you. But it is really important to have cross-race dialogue to understand, because you don't know what it's like to walk in someone's shoes. Right. I mean, just a quick little side story. A couple years ago, my husband and I we live in New Jersey, and we moved into a home in a community. We have 3 young sons. They're not young. That's actually a lie. They're 20, 21, and 24. Wow. I'm like stuck. Forgive me. But about 5 years ago, when they were in high school, one of my neighbors rang the doorbell. Well, actually, she didn't ring the doorbell. Her 3 sons rang the doorbell. But here's what they did. They rang the doorbell one night. We're in the house about 3 days. We all sit on about 5-acre lots in the middle of nowhere. It's dark. It's a Saturday night. We're new in this neighborhood, which is predominantly white. And the camera only shows, looking out the door, three people in hoods. And I don't need to tell you what flashed through my mind. I'm thinking, okay, they're coming to tell us they don't want us here. And my husband, my sons, we were all afraid to open the door. And then at one point, one of the kids looked up and pointed at the camera. Oh, that's the neighbor. And we opened the door, and they said, hey, we wanted to know if Miles, Marcus, and Mason want to come play Manhunt.
Manhunt?
Manhunt. So
is that a video game?
So Manhunt is when they go out in the dark and they play basically hide and seek in each other's woods. Yeah. You see, but what my white neighbors didn't understand, that my black boys could not go running in the woods playing Manhunt in this community, because they might die. Like, seriously, they might die. We could not say that to these 3 kids. So we just made up an excuse about why they couldn't come out. But I'm going to tell you, going back to my own advice about getting comfortable being uncomfortable, it took me 2 weeks to find the courage to call her up and help her understand that my little black boys, not so little, but couldn't play Manhunt in the dark in our neighborhood. And maybe we could play in the daylight in each other's pools or backyards. And when I finally took her out to have a glass of wine to have this conversation, and I said this to her, she cried like that man that cried in your front row. Mm-hmm. And she said, is this what you have to think about? I said, oh yeah, and don't even get me started on driving, them getting in a car. Right. And so it was uncomfortable. It took me 2 weeks to have it. It was painful. I still have goosebumps even reliving it right now, but it had to happen. So these are the kinds of conversations that you need to have in your workplaces with each other. And look at your friend group. Look at your social circles. If you look around your social circle and everybody looks like you, you're missing an opportunity.
Absolutely.
So broaden your own personal networks. It will enrich your lives and help you really understand and appreciate the many dimensions of diversity, and help you understand what you don't know that you didn't even realize you knew about the person sitting or working next to you.
Thank you. So I have one more question for both of them, but also you'll see the mics in the middle of the room. I hope you all have been thinking of questions, because I'm sure there are things you'd like to learn from both of them. So feel free to start lining up, and we will start taking questions from y'all. But, you know, I asked both of you about this because I suffer from this, and it's a level of imposter syndrome as a Black woman who is in rooms with not always other Black women, but also trying to lead a group of people, lead a television show, that kind of thing. And both of you had fabulous answers about this. And it was basically, we don't deal with that bullshit anymore. Both of you told me that. And I just wanted, you know, how did y'all get to that place?
Well, mine is age. I don't know how old you are. I don't know, as I've gotten older and everything that I've been through, and as I said, those areas where I failed and everything, I've learned from the failure, but I've also gotten stronger. And before I leave that question, everyone asked me what the salamander means, and this is what I live by. I bought a farm out in Middleburg, Virginia, and I bought it from a man by the name of, was Bill Dillosacker, and I didn't like the name of his farm. So I did a little research, and Bruce Sunland, who later became governor of Rhode Island, I met with him, and he says, well, the name of my farm is Salamander. And I said, what does that mean? He says, well, I was a fighter pilot, shot down over Nazi-occupied Belgium. My entire unit was captured. I went across Europe, got into Allied territory of France. The US said, we gotta go back and capture the POW. We got to get them out of the POW camp. And we're giving you the code name Salamander. And he says, well, what does it mean? He says, it's the only animal that can walk through fire and still come out alive. And it also stands for perseverance, courage, and fortitude. My staff lines up and has to recite that. But it really was eye-opening for me because I had walked through the fire. And that has given me the ability to go out and really deal with whatever I'm faced with. And I have no problem saying, look, I don't know the answer to this. I'm just new in this room. Whatever I can do, I want to sit back and listen to you because I want to learn from you. So I put them on the defensive because I do want to soak in whatever I can learn. I have no illusions that I know everything. I know I don't, but I will be able to admit it. I'm humble enough to say, look, yeah, I've been around a while, but I don't know what I'm talking about. All right, teach me. And so that's all you have to say.
What about you, Michele?
I would say this. I mean, for me, I came to realize that it's all about managing your mindset. And I reject the imposter syndrome. I instead believe that if you're in a room where you are the difference in the room, then you have a superpower that you are bringing into that room. Your difference brings a level of experience, knowledge, and expertise that the majority of the room does not have. And that could be across racial lines, gender lines, whatever it is. But I can tell you from personal experience that being the only one in the room, which I've been many, many, many times over the course of my career, I always realized that I had an insight to share that nobody else in the room knew to think about. Most recently, navigating through the height of the pandemic, where I would often have to get on meetings with 30 Major League Baseball owners, all older, very, very, very wealthy and powerful white men, who would say something or make a decision or be discussing something, and I go, well, excuse me, gentlemen, might I offer an alternative point of view? And they all go, oh, wow, we didn't think of that.
But do they really listen to you?
Well, it was interesting because, I mean, there was an acknowledgement that, you know, we didn't think about that. And I'm very candid if you haven't figured it out. And I would say, well, you know what, guys, you didn't think about it because you don't have to get on the subway every day.
Right.
You don't think about it because you've got drivers opening your doors and carrying your bags everywhere you go. Like, that's why you're not worried about going to the office. What about all of these other people who are riding bikes, taking subways, because your wife never worked. All right, so your difference is your superpower, and I encourage everybody in this room to own that and reject the imposter syndrome, because what you're doing when you embrace that imposter syndrome mentality is you are diminishing your power.
That's right.
You are diminishing your worth, and it's making you show up weaker than you actually are. So own your superpower.
I will try. Questions from the audience. Y'all have got to have some. You have an opportunity here. No?
We can just keep on going.
We can keep talking.
I see some movement. I don't know if they're moving towards the mic.
I'll give people a moment. People are going to the restroom. I support that as well. Okay.
So well, actually, while we're waiting, I want to just throw something out there. Speaking of owning your superpower, my leader of my Chicago office is here in the room. And since I'm in Chicago, I wanted to let you all know that Dress for Success Worldwide is working with our Chicago office to build a brand new board of directors. So if anyone in this room is interested in potentially giving back by becoming a board member for us, see Wendy Wilkins, Wendy@dressforsuccess.org. It's just that easy. We would love.
Wendy, do you want to stand for a
Wendy,
second?
you want to stand up and wave?
And I want to say something.
We would love to have the Chicago Network women involved in our organization. So please let us know if you're interested.
So I want to say something also. It's really important that as building companies, I call it the double bottom line, and it's called giving back. So I have in the room one of my extraordinary fellows. I've put 50 students through the Kennedy School at Harvard, took care of them all, and not one failure. They're from underserved communities, and I would like Kimberly Daldow to stand up. She is the first Black woman. She's the first Black woman. She's an architect to head up as president of the American AIA. I can't remember what it was. I can't hear you. American Institute of Architects. So she is just amazing, and she sits on the board of Harvard University, and it just goes on and on. But I've got just some incredible fellows.
Congrats.
Your name, where are you from? What would you like to know?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Robin Beeman.
Robin!
My company is Beeman Incorporated, and Sheila hired me
Wow.
many, many years ago
Oh my
to
God.
create the first PR division at Black Entertainment Television.
Wow.
You are amazing.
That's so cool. I know.
You are amazing. You have always supported women. You have always walked in your power. Even if there were some failures, as you said, you would not change anything. So our role as mommies and aunties and sisters are really to empower our young girls. Could you share maybe 2 things that you would share with us on how do we raise powerful young girls to be billionaires, to run the world, to change the world?
Well, Robin, you've really put me on the spot, but I think it's great to see you. More than anything is you really got to know who you are. I think there's so many women sitting out there, and so many young people, especially now with social media, they don't know who they really are. They're trying to imitate others out there. If you don't know yourself, there is no way that you're going to grow emotionally, find your place in life, and this is really, really important. The other thing is to be able to have the courage to ask very difficult questions and to surround yourself with the right people. Because so many times we surround ourselves, and this is, now you're talking about a mistake, I have had some bad people in my life, and I call them energetic vampires. They just want to crawl under your coattails and ride you until you can't be ridden anymore, and it's damaging. So you got to make sure also that you teach your daughter to learn how to set boundaries. Boundaries are really important because those people, those energetic vampires, will try and cross those boundaries to get into your life to destroy you. I've always put people up on a pedestal, and I've learned I've got to start them down here because every time they will disappoint. They will come after you. They will do whatever they can, especially if you're successful. They want to live your life, and they will go by any means to do it. Robin, you know what I'm talking about.
Robin, would you like to get more specific and ask a follow-up so I can get to the story? No? Oh, okay.
Thank you.
But anyway, Robin, it's great to see you.
Great seeing you too.
Okay.
Thank you. What is... And what's your advice?
Yeah, I was actually going to say, one of the other things I think it's really important that we do is we need to expose our young women and girls to all of the possibilities of the things that they can be. Because as a talent leader and as a leader at Dress for Success, one of the things I see is people don't know they can be it because they've never seen anyone like them be it. Right? So we need to tell our girls and spotlight and highlight all of the women who have done some amazing things, you know, inventors, leaders, entrepreneurs, et cetera. We need to show them. I have 4 little nieces under the age of 11, and every time I speak somewhere, I actually will send them the link and go, I'm going to be speaking at this thing, watch it. And they'll come back and go, Auntie Shell, wow, you have a really important job. I can do that. I can be that one day, right? They need to see it to be it. So find ways, either personally and individually to do that with your own family members and friends and children. But if you work in organizations, that are interested in doing this work, bring young people in, show them the career opportunities, mentor them. They need you. And there are so many women and girls and boys, for that matter, that don't have role models.
That's true. That
don't have that support, that don't believe they can be it. I actually am a member of an organization called the Links Incorporated, and we recently did a workshop with inner city kids in Trenton, New Jersey. And we brought some really high-powered women to talk to these young girls. And these young girls, actually, they were like, you're a what? You went to law school? What? You're a business owner? Wait, what's a venture capitalist? They had never, ever heard these terms about these roles, and they never certainly thought they would see brown women in these jobs. Leaving that program now, these young girls have aspirations to be something they never thought they could be. And it was merely because we showed up, we told them about our careers, we're mentoring them and telling them about the possibilities and empowering them, right, to use their superpower to be their best selves. So that's what I would encourage you each to do.
And that's really important. I mean, I even do this all the time, talk to more of them, but I've always been I've always invested in education. And Kimberly knows I've been constantly doing it. It's important, and now I'm really investing in the culinary industry, bringing both men and women through the culinary industry with helping them open restaurants, small businesses, and this is what's really, really important.
That's the giving back part.
Yep, that's the giving back.
So I think if there are no more questions, you're really not going to take this opportunity to ask these women? Okay, it's your own choices. How do you know when it's time for you to take a break? I don't mean change jobs or anything like that, but how do you know when it's time to take a vacation? Because I think both of you are hard-charging women. I think you are powerful. It's hard sometimes in these industries and as women to take a step back and even just be like, I'm gonna take a week off. How do you know when it's time?
I burn out. I mean, I actually will tell you, I literally burn out. So when I left baseball, I actually went home and the day after I left baseball, my last day, I went home and I said to my husband, I'm leaving tomorrow. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Arizona and I'm gonna hide for about 10 days at Canyon Ranch. And I said, he goes, would you want me to go with you? Do you want your mom to go with you? I said, no, I need nobody. I want to be left alone.
that's okay to say.
And I said it, and I was like really honest. I'm like, I am just exhausted. And I knew it. I actually could physically feel it. You know when you're so tired that you even can't sleep? Like I was that tired. And so it was like, okay, it's time to take a minute. So now I'm really, and that experience, by the way, there helped me really appreciate the signs and the signals of burnout, such that now I know that I need to make that time to recharge every time. So I'm going to go visit Sheila in Virginia and spend some time hanging out at her 5-star.
There's a family reunion thing they do with a bunch of chefs that she just
Yeah,
talked about.
that's what I'm saying. I'm like,
out,
yeah, that'll be my new quarterly recharge.
Yeah.
But also, do you see it in your staff? Like, do you encourage them as well?
Oh, absolutely. So funny. We just instituted Summer Fridays. We have Summer Fridays, and one of the things I know, I'm brand new to nonprofit, and I never appreciated how hard people work in nonprofit. I mean, these folks are working round the clock, and they are amazing, amazing people. And so I literally, coming in the door, I said, all right, this summer, to acknowledge, your efforts, your hard work, et cetera, we're going to give you all some time to recharge. So we have Summer Fridays from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and people have nice long weekends to kind of take care of themselves. Because if we are not good to ourselves, we cannot be good to other people.
And in the hospitality business, you talk about grunge work.
I can only imagine.
We are really looking at that carefully because there is a lot of burnout in the hospitality industry. There's also the Great Resignation. So we have to be very, very careful. In my home office, they have built-in vacations. I'll give them 2 weeks off over Christmas and everything, and I'll take that time myself. I just tell them we're going to shut down. But it's something in the hospitality business we are now re-examining to make sure that we are able to keep our employees.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I've heard from both of you is, Michele, you said, oh, we got a question. Yes. What's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Sheila Johnson. I am at National Louis University. I'm the Dean of the College of Psychology and Behavioral Sciences. My heart's beating very fast, and so I want to put that out there and take the pressure off. I'm rejecting my imposter syndrome.
Yes.
I'm going to ask a question. So the question I had is just, I appreciate hearing your thoughts about, I think that when we think about leadership and what that looks like filtered through identity as a woman, because I hear sometimes it's this idea of if you're going to be a strong leader, that looks masculine, and sort of taking on this identity or taking on masculine traits in order to be a strong leader. And as I look at the two of you and look at some of the women leaders I know, that there's a holding on to identity as a woman, and it doesn't have to be loud or strong or like angry or aggressive, but sort of holding on to your thoughts about sort of holding on to who you are and figuring out what leadership looks like as filtered through who you are as a person. Does that question make sense?
It does. I mean, I would say let it go.
Yeah.
I mean, let it go. If you think back to the conversation we had earlier today about what leadership looks like, leadership actually looks like all of those things that we are as women. We are generally vulnerable. We are open. We are caring. We are transparent, right? We have empathy. And I think it's funny, I actually read an article not too long ago about how all of those qualities mean more in leadership now more than ever as we navigate these really just crazy times. So I think lean into that again and own that difference as your superpower, okay? Yeah. Don't let that negative self-talk, push you in the wrong direction. Use it, it's important. I mean, Sheila and I both articulated at the very top, before we even knew you were gonna ask that question, that those core qualities are critical to successful leadership today.
Yeah, just own your power because people can see right through it, and that's when they're going to start taking advantage of you. So please don't let that get out there, okay? You have the confidence in yourself to be able to get out there and own your power.
And that confidence can be quiet. It doesn't have to be loud.
Yeah.
People still respect that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take this last one, and then I'm getting all of the signals to wrap.
Good afternoon. My name is Corliss Garner. I lead up diversity, equity, and inclusion for Old National Bank here in the Chicago area. My question is around being in a space of DE&I. When you do get those roadblocks, what is your advice on how do you continue to move forward and stay encouraged in the work?
So you and I can definitely talk more offline because every organization is different. But what I like to do is, you kind of have to prioritize your wish list of items you'd like to tackle because no organization is ready to tackle them all at the same time, and you have to kind of meet the organization where it's at. So you pick the low-hanging fruit, you go for that first, and then you continue to push through the more challenging issues, and you stay the course. As I said earlier, sometimes, it gets frustrating. Actually, many times it gets frustrating, but that's the work. So I encourage you to just stay that course, prioritize, and again, happy to talk more offline.
And you have to realize this DEI has been something new since George Floyd. I mean, now we got a lot of DEIs out there, and this is all new. This is all new, and you're going to have to really work through it. And it's new for your employer. I mean, they're just checking a box. They hired you, they check in the box. And you gotta then, I think you should sit down with your employer and figure out, can we put together a plan of how you want to tackle these issues?
Thank you.
And take her up on it. Find her.
Yeah, seriously.
Do that.
Reach out to me on LinkedIn or see me after this, okay? Yeah.
So Michele, I want to say thank you to you. You said unblock your blessings, which I will try to remember. Sheila, thank you to you. You said there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. I'm also going to start to wake up and say perseverance, courage, and servitude every day. So I just remember that. Hopefully y'all remember that as well. Thank you to y'all. Thank you to the Chicago Network. Thank you to Denise and Maria. And thank you to you, Irika. This has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.